I find this exceptionally sad because, Lucas, you talk about how hurt you were and how offended you were by such despicable things, and then you became the thing that you found the most repulsive, which is alarming, and as I mentioned, deeply saddening. I would be more than happy to litigate some of Charlie's positions for you. I abjectly
I don't think I need any litigation
face,
from a woman who tried to downplay slavery, who tried to all lives matter slavery after she purchased a black child. That's what I would argue.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Blue Lens. Now today's clip is wild, not because of the argument itself, but because of what the reaction reveals. We're looking at a tense exchange on Piers Morgan's show involving the amazing Lucas, and almost immediately the entire panel starts losing their minds. But here's the thing. The real story isn't whether you agree with every single thing Lucas said. The real story is how quickly people who spent years defending offensive rhetoric suddenly discovered the importance of respect, civility, and moral standards when the conversation got uncomfortable for them. And that's what caught my attention, because this debate quickly turns into something much bigger than one personality, one comment, or one viral moment. It becomes a conversation about hypocrisy, accountability, and who gets sympathy in our political culture. You're going to hear some strong accusations. You're going to see people talking past each other. And you're going to watch a panel that completely misses the bigger issue sitting right in front of them. As always, we're going to look beyond the shouting and focus on what this moment actually tells us about politics, media, and the standards that seem to change depending on who's being criticized. If you enjoy this kind of analysis, take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and help us keep growing this community. Now, let's get into it.
Titled Charlie Kirk versus Bullet. Can one bullet to the neck outsmart one conservative? Well, that was a short watch. Number 2 is a mocked up promotion poster called Kirk and Twerk at Neck of the Woods and hashtagged both Charlie Kirk and his widow. And the third was an image of a sunrise titled God Works in Mysterious Ways with the hashtag Charlie Kirk killing and praying hands as an emoji. And you're laughing as I show these. Why do you find this funny?
Well, let me just say that I actually am a big advocate for dark humor. And I happen to have gotten a bit of a taste of that over the last, I don't know, maybe decade or so when it came to the right and their memes of George Floyd. Happy birthday being sober for 5 years. When they came to their memes of Breonna Taylor, when it came to their memes of Trayvon Martin, the Trayvon challenge, right? When it came to their memes of Tamir Rice. So I don't know what the issue is. I think I'm engaging in the freedom of speech that the right has been advocating for these last 10 years and mocking and making light of Black death, something that Charlie Kirk himself did time and time again. As a matter of fact, I would argue that if Charlie Kirk, instead of focusing his time on Black culture and Black on Black crime, if he had spent a modicum of his time focusing on the white youth, that perhaps he would still be with us today.
Are you pleased he's dead?
No, absolutely not.
So how did you feel about his murder?
I don't think.
How did you feel about his murder?
How do I feel about his murder?
Yeah.
Well, I think a quote by a great author sums up the sentiment of millions of Americans around the world. And that is, some cause happiness wherever they go, others when they go. And I think that's a sentiment that is palpable amongst many Americans around the world due to the hate and vitriol and bile that Charlie Kirk sowed. So I think there was a pastor
just to be clear, unless I misheard you, then you are happy he died.
No, I don't think as far as happiness is an emotion that
you literally just read me a quote which implies you're happy. You talked about some people's death bring happiness.
The purpose of the quote was to say that there are some people who have caused harm and death and turmoil to other groups of people, such as Charlie Kirk, whether it's Black people, whether it's, trans people.
No, I heard the quote,
but
just to be clear, you said that the quote ends in that their death brings happiness, but you've denied that you were happy. But when you tell me a quote
I don't disagree that
when you tell me a quote like that, I presume from that quote you're implying that actually you are happy he died because he deserved it. He had it coming.
No, not at all. I don't think those are ever words that I've ever mentioned verbatim ever. I think there is a sentiment that when someone who lives their life in evil and wickedness, according to the scripture, the power of life and death is in your tongue. And the hate and the vile and the venom that he spewed I don't know what to tell you. As the scripture says, as he professed, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. I think his focus should have been on a community that, clearly is in problem. I find it interesting that there's more scrutiny on people who may make memes that they've done of George Floyd and other Black victims than on the white male youth that did this tragedy, as some would call it.
Why would you be offended about the memes to people like George Floyd, which I found contemptible at the time, if they're the same ones that you're talking about? Why would you profess to be offended by those if you're quite happy to do the same kind of thing yourself?
I think the point that I'm making by the memes that I'm putting out, which clearly has caused outrage and triggering, I find it a bit hypocritical that the people for years who said fuck your feelings are now overwhelmed with feelings at the moment. But the point that I was making was to point out the hypocrisy that the right has on a variety and myriad of issues, as we just saw with Pam Bondi on the freedom of speech. I think the issue is that they have scapegoated people like Pam Bondi for what is the crime of Donald Trump. The same thing they did with Anthony Fauci. We saw this when it came to the Second Amendment. They banned bump stock ban. They had a bump stock ban under Donald Trump while they were fear-mongering about Biden take away your guns. But as we saw, there was no outrage, there was no protest, and we come to find out that it was unconstitutional. So I think this hypocrisy is ubiquitous within the right, and I think my memes expose that hypocrisy.
And what about your own personal humanity? I mean, hashtagging his widow in a mocked-up promotion poster of Kirk and Twerk at Neck of the Woods. How do you justify targeting... hang on. How do you justify targeting his widow?
I think that's a bit disingenuous to use such hyperbolic language as targeting. I think it's more of a strategic plan of attack to get the message out to more people. When we saw Erica Kirk, she had a moment to speak for unity within the country, left and right, and she chose to fundraise. She then chose to use the scripture and talk, very nicely of her, past husband. And I understand that. But by that same token, there are people who were absolutely harmed by the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk put out. And that rhetoric actually codified in many cases in many states. So I think it's abhorrent and actually perverse to expect people who are harmed by his rhetoric, harmed by someone who had anti-Black, anyone who wasn't white and Christian in his perspective. I think it's perverse to try and criticize those people or try and make them seem as if they're the bad guys when that's
but you see, funny enough, I can look at what you've done and I can see somebody who is abhorrent and despicable and actually evil. Actually, the stuff when you target someone's widow as she grieves.
Once
and
again,
tries to
I disagree with the word
children.
targeting.
No. I'm talking about me. I'm talking about me personally. My view of what you've done. I don't care about your motivation in terms of other people's inappropriate memes, many of which I may well agree with you about. But that doesn't mean that I then go and do it myself or worse, because that makes me even more inhuman and abhorrent, and by your definition,
I disagree. I think there's evil.
I know you disagree. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you.
When it comes to Republicans, when it comes to conservatives,
I know. Hang on.
They have to see.
I've let you have your say.
I think I'm a mirror.
I've let you have your
what
say.
They have shown.
I'll let you have your say.
And if they don't like what they see, then they should actually detour from their wicked path.
I'm using your own justification to tell you what I think of you and what you've done. Right? That's my free speech at work. Let me bring in Jillian Michaels.
Agree.
I mean, Jillian, look. I saw Brian there nodding to some of what he was hearing there, not all, to be clear, but nodding to some of it about the hypocrisy which Lucas claims he is exposing with this stuff. What is your view of what he's said?
I find this exceptionally sad because, Lucas, you talk about how hurt you were and how offended you were by such despicable things, and then you became the thing that you found the most repulsive, which is alarming. And as I mentioned, deeply saddening. I would be more than happy to litigate some of Charlie's positions for you. I abjectly...
I don't think I need any litigation from a woman who tried to downplay slavery, who tried to all lives matter slavery after she purchased a Black child. That's what I would argue. I don't think you need to as far as litigate anything.
Would you like to discuss it?
Okay.
Because the reality of the situation is that what I gave you, whether you like it or not, is a fact from the 1860 census. And
It
the point was not
literally
to
is not a fact.
downplay
It
slavery.
is actually a bastardization of actual history.
You're
what you
wrong.
cited
We can
was
discuss-
inaccurate. You can actually look it up. I don't know if you did. I
actually
doubt you
did
do your
look
due
it up.
diligence. You clearly did not,
Would you
because
like to
in that
discuss
study
it?
that you're citing, in the study that I'm discussing it right now, in the study that you're citing, it takes into account not only the slaves, it takes into account the northern states and the southern states. So to try and implement or to say this all lives matter when it comes to slavery, which is abhorrent and in extreme contradiction to American history, especially in this country as chattel slavery as Black Americans, is abhorrent and perverse, especially you, who is the mother of a Black child, who she purchased.
Right.
Other people
Is it my
adopt.
turn to talk?
You purchased.
Is it?
By all means.
How did I? Okay, well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by purchase. She's adopted, and it is illegal
Did you
to
pay?
purchase a child.
Did you pay to get that child?
No, I paid the adoption agency.
It was
fees to do my
absolutely free.
hope study.
It was absolutely okay.
I
So
paid
then
the
there was a
adoption
process of
agency
payment.
like you
So then there
pay
was
to
a process
adopt a
of payment.
child.
I
To
believe
an
that other
American
people adopt. You
adoption
purchased.
agency. Okay, you're wrong, and that's defamation.
I'm literally
And it's
right
an
as you're
absolute
saying
lie,
that you
and
paid
it's-
to an adoption
you're
agency.
literally wrong, and it's this
I'm
kind
literally
of hateful,
correct.
You know what you are? You know what you are,
I
Lucas?
think what's
let me
hateful
just
is you
hang
downplaying
on, let me
slavery.
jump in
That's
here.
what I think is
Let me
hateful.
jump in
I
here,
didn't actually
Lucas.
downplay
Let me jump in
slavery.
here, Lucas.
That's
it seems to
literally
me
what you did.
Seems to me, Lucas, you've decided to be just as offensive as you want to be. You're now attacking people who adopt children, which is one of the most selfless things that any human being could do, actually.
This is literally what
But
the
you-
right did to Dave Rubin, is
Fine,
it not?
Fine, but what you're doing is just trying to be as offensive as possible whilst masquerading under this umbrella of, well, everybody else is offensive, so that's why I'm doing it, to expose
Not
all
at
the
all, and I
hypocrisy.
think if that's
But
what I'm
Gillian
giving
is
off, I
right.
apologize
Gillian is
sincerely.
right.
What
that
I'm
actually
merely trying to
you
do
have descended.
is create
you
a
have,
better
The way
world.
you've
What
just
I'm
gone
trying to
after
do is to
Gillian.
unify
You know what,
people.
Lucas?
The
Stop
only way we
talking.
can unify people
Stop
is for
talking.
people to understand the
Stop
harms that they've
talking.
done.
You have targeted Gillian for adopting a child. That is despicable. Let me bring in
I
Riley
have
Gaines.
targeted Jillian for adopting a Black child after she downplayed slavery, which
Right.
I think is contradictory.
Fine. You attacked her for adopting a child.
I mean, let's not
14 years
misconstrue
ago.
my words that I'm
So-
saying.
Oh, I heard your words. Let me
Yeah,
bring in.
I
Let
did
me
too,
bring in.
Lucas.
Let me bring in Riley.
You're
Riley.
misinterpreting
Let me
that.
bring in Riley Gaines here.
Sure, buddy.
Riley, you've been waiting patiently.
What stands out to me after watching that entire exchange is that almost everybody on that panel ended up proving the very point they were trying to argue against. Now, let me be clear about something. You do not have to agree with every joke, every meme, or every statement that the amazing Lucas made to recognize the larger issue he was trying to force into the conversation. The central question was never really about whether a particular meme crossed the line. The question was why certain forms of cruelty become acceptable in American politics until the target changes. And that is where the conversation became uncomfortable. For years, we've watched political commentators, influencers, and media personalities build audiences by treating the suffering of other people as entertainment. That's not a left-wing phenomenon. That's not a right-wing phenomenon. That's an internet phenomenon. But Lucas wasn't talking about the internet in general. He was specifically pointing at a political culture that often celebrates toughness and mocks people for being offended, only to demand sensitivity when criticism lands closer to home. That accusation clearly struck a nerve. What I found interesting was how quickly the discussion stopped being about Charlie Kirk's public record and became entirely about Lucas himself. That's usually what happens when a debate moves into uncomfortable territory. Instead of addressing the underlying criticism, the focus shifts to the person delivering it. Now, does that mean every argument Lucas made was perfect? No. In fact, some of his comments gave his critics an opening to avoid the larger conversation altogether. That's one of the risks when you use shock tactics. People stop discussing the substance and start discussing the delivery. But here's the part that shouldn't be ignored. Political rhetoric has consequences. Every major political movement in American history has been shaped by language. Language determines who belongs. Language determines who is seen as a threat. Language determines who deserves empathy and who doesn't. That's true whether we're talking about race, immigration, religion, gender, or economic class. The reason these debates become so emotional is because people understand that words don't exist in a vacuum. When public figures spend years portraying certain groups as dangerous, inferior, or undeserving of concern, those messages don't simply disappear into thin air. They become part of the political culture. They influence voters, They influence policy discussions. They influence how people view their neighbors. That's why conversations about rhetoric matter. And that's also why accusations of hypocrisy hit so hard. Nobody likes being confronted with standards they apply to others but refuse to apply to themselves. What made this exchange so explosive wasn't simply disagreement. It was that both sides were claiming the moral high ground while accusing the other side of abandoning it long ago. And for viewers, that's where the real lesson is. Don't get distracted by the loudest moment. Don't get distracted by the insult that trends on social media. Don't get distracted by the clip that's designed to generate outrage. Ask yourself the bigger question. Are the standards being applied consistently? If a behavior is wrong when one side does it, is it still wrong when your side does it? If cruelty is unacceptable when directed at people you support, is it also unacceptable when directed at people you oppose? Those questions matter because a healthy democracy depends on principles that survive political convenience. At the same time, accountability matters too. Public figures don't get to spend years provoking outrage, inflaming divisions, and shaping political discourse, then expect the public conversation about their legacy to be entirely free of criticism. That's not how politics works. Public influence comes with public scrutiny. And that's why moments like this generate so much tension. They're not really arguments about one person. They're arguments about power, influence, accountability, and who gets to define the rules. That's the deeper story underneath all the yelling. As always, I want to hear what you think. Did the panel address the real issue, or did they spend most of their time avoiding it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy commentary that goes beyond the headline and digs into the bigger picture, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Blue Lens, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next conversation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.